My name is Zach Weiland, and I am the best candidate to be the Washington County Attorney. My record speaks for itself. I am the toughest on crime. I am the strongest advocate for the victim's rights. I support gaining access to public lands, and I am against illegal immigration. Tough on crime. I've built my career on holding criminals accountable and keeping our neighborhoods safe. I don't make excuses, I make prosecutions. I have the most jury trial experience of all the candidates. With over 80 jury trials, I have the highest conviction rate. I believe in law and order, and I will ensure that violent offenders, drug traffickers, and repeat criminals face real consequences. I am the strongest advocate for victims' rights. Justice isn't about just punishing the guilty. It's about standing with the innocent. I've worked closely with the victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, and other crimes. I've seen firsthand how our system can fail them. Justice delayed is justice denied. Too often these cases get drawn out. We need to do better. As county attorney, I will be the victim's strongest advocate. I will fight for faster resolutions, stronger protections, and a justice system that puts victims first. I support gaining access to public lands. The federal government manages over 75% of Washington County land. We need greater access and control of our local land. We need to work together to get better access for water and infrastructure. We need to complete the Northern Corridor. I believe in responsible stewardship, local control, and preserving access for those who cherish these lands. Finally, I am against illegal immigration. Illegal immigration undermines our laws, strains our resources, and puts our communities at risk. I support Donald Trump in deporting those who commit violent crimes out of Washington County. I'm the only candidate that has always worked closely with Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. I have them on my contacts list and I call them repeatedly. If you are a guest in our county and you commit a violent crime, you need to be prosecuted and removed. As county attorney, I will not turn a blind eye to illegal activity. I will ensure that our county does not become a sanctuary city. In closing, I have the strongest record. I am a man of action and passion, and I would love your support. Thank you.
Jerry, you're up. Thanks, man.
Yes. Okay, my name is Jerry Jager, and I love Washington County. I actually, back in 1989, I had the chance to come here to Dixie College, and it was an amazing experience. And that was my first chance to really fall in love with Washington County. I met my wonderful wife at BYU, and after getting married and going to law school, my wife is from here. We had the chance to move back here to Washington County and work as a prosecutor. We were hired by Judge Ludlow, and then Zach and I, we actually started together way back in 1999, so it's definitely been a while. After 9/11, I had the chance to go to the FBI for 3 years and work in LA. And I worked against public corruption, and I also had the chance to work on the Crimes Against Child Squad. And that was a great experience. And I wouldn't trade that for anything, but I also realized how much we loved Washington County. This is the best place to live and raise a family. And so when I got the chance to come back here, I was offered by Brock Belknap to come and work the Warren Jeffs case. I quickly took that opportunity and came back and worked that case. That was a difficult case. It took us 2 years to get a conviction against Warren Jeffs, but we fought hard. And at the time, people questioned us as to why we were going against Warren Jeffs, and they didn't know that what we knew is that he was sexually molesting many, many young women, and he was doing this himself. The charge we actually charged him with was an accomplice charge, and we were working with Texas to eventually get him sent to Texas so that he could be tried there, and that is what happened, and that's where he'll be for the rest of his life. But that's where I really developed a love for working with victims, and especially working with children. I'm lucky to be now a special victims prosecutor. I'm actually the senior special victims prosecutor. I've tried more cases than anyone in our office over the last 6.5 years. I've tried 23 cases. What that means is that I'm taking hard cases to trial. 4 homicide cases I've taken to trial in 1. I've taken a number of child sex offense cases. I'm taking them to trial, and I've won. In fact, I've won all my special victims cases. I'm going to fight for victims. I'm also going to make sure that we work together, and that's very important. I actually had a great phone call with Eric Clark, and he's going to continue to help us with our road issues. That's one of our big top priorities. We've got to make sure we get the Northern Corridor. And I'm grateful to have his help. He is the expert. The three of us, we're criminal attorneys. We could not do it. So we've got to have Eric Clark and continue to get his assistance. So I promise that I'll be here to fight for Washington County because this is my love. And I love working with victims. And they are my top priority, is working with victims. Now understand that when you're working with child victims, sometimes that means that you can't just be the toughest prosecutor. You have to understand them. And as a team, and you need to recognize with special victims, everything's done as a team. We work right with the Children's Justice Center. We work with the detectives. We work with the guardians, with their mental health providers. And in the end, we're going to do what's right and in the best interest for that child. And sometimes that does require plea agreements, because I'm never going to force a child to take the stand. And I pledge that I will never prosecute anyone for political purposes or for personal purposes. Thank you.
So now it is Larry's turn.
Well, it's good to be here tonight. I'm Larry Myers, running for county attorney because I think we need bold leadership here in Washington County. And I think I have a broad resume and experience that is above and beyond the competition. I want to compliment both of these competitors here in the race. I know Zach and Jerry very well. We go back a long ways, and we've worked together and we've worked against each other over the years. And so I appreciate them being involved. But I think I've got some things to add that are extra beyond just the prosecution experience that comes with either one of them. First of all, a little bit of background about me. I went to Brigham Young University for my undergraduate in political science. That's where I met my wife, Marlee. Some of you may know her. She ran for county clerk a few years ago and has been pretty involved in the community over the years. We have 3 sons. We've lived in Winchester Hills for about 25 years, which is just north of St. George in the county area. And after graduating from undergraduate, I went back to law school at BYU. Worked a little bit with Mike Lee there in establishing the Federalist Society, which is a conservative organization for attorneys and law students. And then what I'd always wanted to do was be a prosecutor. And the first job I got offered was down here with Eric Ludlow. And so I came to Washington County in 1996, a couple years before these guys, and was at the county attorney's office for 2.5 years. I did both prosecution and civil stuff. I was kind of the backup civil guy for a couple years and helped out with a lot of the county's civil issues when they needed a backup. And then I went over to St. George City as a prosecutor for 5 years. And then I've been in private practice since 2003, handling a wide variety of cases, but mostly criminal and mostly criminal defense. I've been a public defender for about the past 8 years or so. And so I do have a strong experience both in handling all types of criminal cases, but also very serious felony cases that come with the public defender assignments. So that's a little bit about my background, but I think many of you probably know me more from the political side. I've been heavily involved with the Washington County Republican Party for about 25 years now, since about 2000, when I first ran for the legislature. And I've had the opportunity to have a lot of leadership in the party. I've been a party vice chair. I've been involved on the precinct level. I've represented us at the SCC. Just today I was working on a resolution encouraging our sheriffs to support the 287G program here in Utah with ICE to get more illegal aliens detained and deported. And so I think you've seen my leadership and my commitment to principle. I've always been involved not because I want to be an elected official, but because I believe in the principles of our founding, of our Constitution, and we want those types of principles to be demonstrated in our public offices. And a lot of times we don't see that. We have public office holders who let us down. They promise one thing, and then they deliver another when they get in office. So I hope not to be that type of elected official. I want to be someone that represents the values of the people. So the things that I'm running on, just real quick to finish up, as these guys say, we need to continue to have strong prosecution of serious crimes. That will be important. Things like sex offenses, violent assaults, trafficking, human trafficking, drug trafficking, all deserve the strongest possible prosecution that we can put forward. Number two, I think we need to focus on illegal immigration even more. Our sheriff's doing a great job, but I think our county attorney's office needs to be leading the charge on that. And I've proposed having a county task force where we bring people together and develop as many ways as we can to make our efforts against illegal immigration effective. I think we need to protect the rights of the citizens. You've heard a little bit of talk about the public lands, and that's super important, but that's just part of protecting our rights. As counties and states, we have to defend ourselves against the federal government, and I think that part of my program as county attorney would be to make sure we protect citizens' rights under the Constitution, and we also protect ourselves against federal overreach. So I look forward to your questions, and thanks for having us tonight.
Great. Thank you, Larry. Thank you to all of our, there's no echo still, right? Okay. Sounds all right. Yeah, thanks everybody for the opening. We did get a good number of questions emailed in ahead of time, so we have a fairly full schedule, but of course, folks, don't hesitate to post your questions into the question and answer section. We will get to as many of those as time permits. Let's go into these questions, and I will start a timer now just to keep an idea of when things are going too long. I'm not going to try to hold you to anything super strict, but if you could try to quickly answer the question, get to the meat of what your thoughts are on a topic. I'll try to start warning you at about 2 minutes on answers, and we'll just move forward from there. So the first one, this was emailed in. It's really about our caucus convention system, also known as neighborhood elections. We'd like to understand your views on the caucus convention system within the Republican Party, how you would contrast it and your preference of it versus the signature path. And if you could specifically address if you've specifically sought signatures or helped another candidate for any county office or state collect signatures to bypass the Republican convention process. And we will go, I'll cycle through the order of everybody. So Zach started first. Now Jared will start with this question.
Great. So I first got introduced to the caucus system actually right after I moved here back in 1999. That was at the time Dean Cox was the chair of the Republican Party, and he was working with my father-in-law, Evan Raker. And Dean kind of took me under his wings. He's an amazing man, and we all miss him. And he took me under his wings, and he actually had me become the parliamentarian. And that was a neat opportunity. He actually gave me his Robert Rules of Order, and I still have that. And I haven't looked at it for a little while, but that was a neat opportunity to be a parliamentarian and to get introduced to the caucus system. That also gave me an introduction as to why it's important to use the caucus system. After that, I was a delegate. I was a vice chair. I've been a state delegate. I've been very involved in the caucus system. It's important that we do that we recognize that we need to use our caucus system. Now, there has been one occasion where I did help gather signatures. I believe the concern, and I've talked with Willie Billions about this, is that we need to make sure that we educate our delegates, make sure that they understand that if they're going to be a delegate, they've got to vet the candidates. And this was a situation where the delegates were refusing to really vet the candidates. And so I pledge to use the caucus system as long as we have the delegates that are doing their job. And Willie agreed that we need to get out there and educate our delegates and make sure that they are actually vetting and doing their job and allowing and meeting with us, hearing from each one of us. Unfortunately, even through this process, I've had a few individuals that are refusing to talk to me. They've already made up their mind. And that's not right as a delegate. We need to be open. We need to be vetting. We need to be doing our job. Thank you.
All right, Larry.
I really appreciate this question. I'll be very frank. I'm 100% opposed to the signature path. I think we need to repeal SB 54. We need to stick with our time-tested caucus and convention system. I started being a delegate when I was in college up in Provo and have continued to participate in the system almost every year or every other year as an officer or a delegate ever since then. So probably over 30 years now. And I think that the caucus and convention system is a Republican system rather than a Democrat system. It is a better system for vetting the candidates and picking better candidates. And I think the signature system just lends itself to money and name recognition. And it really isn't a good way to select our candidates to get them on the ballot. So what have I done about that? From the very beginning, I fought against SB 54. I was involved with groups that tried to oppose what they were trying to do at the time they passed it. Since then, I've supported resolutions, including, some of you may be aware, at the most recent state convention for the Republican Party, we passed a platform amendment that made support for the caucus and convention system part of our Utah Republican platform. A lot of people don't know that I'm the one that wrote that. Because Lowell Nelson, my friend, he sponsored it because he was a state delegate and I wasn't last year. But I'm actually the one that drafted that. And so you know that I'm very committed to protecting our caucus and convention system. And I've had a PAC where we try to support candidates who go caucus and convention. We raise money for them to try to get the legislature to repeal SB 54. And I pledge that I will only go through the caucus and convention. I will not gather signatures. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Can you just answer very clearly about the if you've ever helped anybody gather signatures?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I voted for Mike Lee, and I hate that he gathered signatures. He didn't need to. It wasn't, I don't think, a good move. But as far as actually gathering signatures, no. And generally, I only support candidates who do not gather signatures.
All right. Thank you for firming that one up. And then Zach, same question, please.
Yes. I have never gathered signatures. I oppose paid signature gatherers. I do not like the fact that individuals could just pay money and get other people to do their work for them. I believe in the caucus system and I want it to work. The caucus system but it does have some problems. I want the caucus system to represent all the voters. I am concerned with the lack of turnout within the caucus system. We don't have enough people. We need to be a fair representation. I do like the fact that the individuals involved are very passionate, and I like that. I pledge that I will support the caucus system, and I have not, nor will I gather signatures.
All right. Thank you, Zach. Next question, since you mentioned a paid signature gathering, one of the questions that came in was about the case here in the last election where there were fraudulent signatures found on signature packets. And we wanted to understand, where you sat in understanding that issue. Were there problems that came about from that issue? And would you have done anything different with how the county attorney handled that? And Larry, you're up first on that one.
The signature gathering process inherently encourages people to cut corners because you want to get those signatures so that you can get on the ballot. And when you're out talking to people, you want to get as many signatures as you can as quickly as you can, especially if you're a paid gatherer. You're getting paid to gather as many signatures as you can. And so it really was inevitable that there was going to be fraud. And I'm glad they found the fraud. I'm glad they investigated and they prosecuted it. It's a very serious breach of our election responsibilities to have fraud in our system because it allows people who don't deserve to be on the ballot if their signatures are obtained fraudulently. So I'm very opposed to that, and I think it does need to be prosecuted aggressively. My understanding is that the county attorney's office did not handle that. It was turned over to the attorney general's office. They filed charges, I believe it was felony charges, against all the people who were identified as fraudulently gathering signatures. And I was very disappointed in the cases I saw. They gave them misdemeanor plea and abeyances to keep their records clean. It seemed like a slap on the wrist to me that people who were fraudulently hurting our elections got that kind of deal. I don't know all the details of why that was, but if I was the county attorney prosecuting that, I think there should be more accountability for that type of fraud. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Zach, you're up next on that question.
Yes, I was unaware of any. Larry is correct that the county attorney did not get those cases. They were assigned somewhere else. I was not informed of that investigation nor prosecution. I will tell you that if there is fraud, I stand against all fraud. I would punish them, and I would prosecute them as best as I could. But I was unaware of any of the fraud that was identified in that question.
All right. Thanks, Zach. Jerry, same question, please.
Yes, I'm probably more familiar with this than the other two. Our investigator, Terry Taylor, he did investigate that. I was in some of those conversations as he worked to investigate that. He did a good job investigating that and putting that case together. We were concerned about having a conflict, though, if we kept that at our level of the county attorney's office. And that's why we looked at turning it over to the attorney general's office after we investigated it. Once we turned it over to the attorney general's office, that was their decision to make. And so we weren't a part of the plea deals. I do not agree with paid signature gathering. I think that's a huge problem. And that's something that I would not ever do or agree with. And so I do agree with the investigation. And I think that does need to be prosecuted if that's an issue.
All right. Thank you for that. Moving
Hey,
on.
Gary, could I have a 30-second rebuttal?
Of course. Yeah, go ahead.
Would that be allowed?
Yeah.
This is what I'd say. If I'm the county attorney, I don't think I would have those type of conflicts because I wouldn't be supporting candidates whose paid signature gatherers are doing that type of thing. So I just wanted to add that as my 30-second rebuttal to the conflict of interest.
I think that's
issue.
fair. It also struck me as odd that the wording there in terms of it being handed over because of conflict, because I don't know. I also don't know why we wouldn't keep things close to us. And also what was explained in other meetings was not that we handed it over, but that the state pulled it from us. So I'm not actually sure now which the way is. Jerry, since you're so close to it, do you want to try to help us out with what actually happened? Did we hand it over willingly because of conflicts, or was it pulled from us from the state?
Well, of course, I wasn't actually involved with that. Eric Clark made that ultimate decision. But my understanding is, yes, that they felt like it was best that they turned it over to the state. Gotcha. I wasn't actually in the actual discussion with the attorney general's office. That would have been Eric Clark that ultimately made that decision. Okay,
fantastic. All right, moving on to the next question. Just again, picking them randomly from what has come in over email. What do you think is the biggest threat to Washington County that you can actually do something about, right? So like the actual do something about is, there's a lot of problems everywhere. Some of them are nationally influenced that you got to go influence national policy. So you can't really do something about that. But the things that are local, what's locally happening that here in Washington County that you can actually do something about? And we're back to the beginning with Zach again.
Twofold. One of the biggest issues that are affecting Washington County is the drugs and the transportation of drugs through Washington County. We have because we are a corridor, we have a very high amount of large trafficking in fentanyl, in heroin, cocaine. All of those drugs come through Washington County. Most recently, I have had several cases which THC vape pens are being transported to Washington or through Washington County to be destined in the Utah state. These vape pens are being sold to kids in schools. Most recently, we had a 19-year-old young man that had over 5,000 vape pens with a street value of $40. And so he has $200,000 worth of THC vape pens, and it was destined for West Valley. So that is a major concern we have, is the illegal drugs. In addition, I believe that the pornography industry has also affected the minds of individuals. We have several individuals that are collecting pornography and then abusing children, and we need to do whatever we can to stop that.
All right, thank you, Zach. Moving back down to Jerry.
Okay, I would also say there are 2 points. First of all, it is illegal immigration was a huge problem, specifically criminals, and they were the ones that were bringing in the drugs. And I'll say, thanks to President Trump's immigration program, it's not going to be ever a Larry Myers or a Jerry Jager. It is our president's immigration task force. He is the one that's put that together. It's a federal task force. And we actively have been working with them for the past year, and they're doing amazing. This is the best I've ever seen in my 30-year career when it comes to removing criminals from our country. Specifically, myself, I have helped remove 2 child sex offenders, one of which was actually picked up in court. I worked right with the task force. They grabbed him in court and took him away. And so we are removing them. It's happening as we speak. It's the best we've ever seen. And again, it's President Trump's. We need to work with them, with the federal government. They're the ones in charge. They have the mandate, and it's the task force is in place, and we are working with them. But that's on the federal level. It is not going to be a Washington County controlled task force. We're a part of that. Number 2, we have a big issue with children that we need to protect our children. We need to be more proactive. We actually have a mandate from the Children's Justice Center to be out talking to parents and helping parents understand that we need to take a more proactive role in protecting our children. I prosecuted the case involving Bryce Taylor, the biggest case we've had here in Washington County, where he was charged with an unknown amount of young women that he had sexually molested. We ended up having 8 child victims come in during that trial and testify against him. Gratefully, we got a conviction. He was put away in prison. But when I talked to the parents, I realized that each one of them, they felt like something was wrong, but they didn't have the courage to stand up and protect their children. They didn't know what to do. We need to be actively involved, and I pledge to be actively involved, to be out there speaking and helping parents understand that we need to take a more proactive role. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jerry. Larry, same question, please.
Yeah, those are great answers by my opponents. I agree that those are very serious issues, and I commend them. Both of these are very good prosecutors, and I would be really proud to be able to be their county attorney and work with them and have them continue to prosecute. I think I would add 2 more things. One is on that issue of illegal immigration. Very few people in our county have had more leadership on raising awareness of that and trying to find solutions than I have. Clear back, oh boy, probably 20 years ago, we started the Citizens Council on Illegal Immigration. We met monthly at the county building in a public meeting where people could come in and talk about the problem of illegal immigration and how to solve it. That was way before that was a popular thing. But that was before Donald Trump. And I certainly agree with what Jerry said about President Trump breaking ground and finally making it happen. But it didn't happen back when we were asking for it because local leaders didn't get on board. We need local leaders who are willing to take the lead on that issue, and I think that's an issue where I'm best qualified. But also just in general, concerns about the federal government. Right now, they might not seem too big of a deal because we've got Donald Trump in the White House, and many of us feel like he's not out to violate our rights or force us to do things. But if we look back just 5 years ago, the government was determined to force us to get shots, to wear masks, to shut down our businesses. They told us we couldn't have people over for Thanksgiving dinner. That's communism, in my opinion. That is not the American way. And we need leadership in this county that's going to say that's not going to happen here. I think our commissioners and our prior county attorney did a pretty good job in 2020, 2021. But we got to be ready for that to come again. President Trump's not always going to be president. And I think the federal government's never going to stop trying to push left-wing agendas. So we need that type of bold leadership against that, and that protects our individual rights. Thanks.
Thank you, Larry. Hey, I got a follow-up question on that. I'll give you each 30 seconds to address. I love that illegal immigration came up. I think that's one of the huge issues, not just in our county, but countrywide. I think it's been easy to say, and I've heard a number of politicians say this, especially now that we're in election season. Oh, thank goodness that we have Donald Trump. Like everything's going to be fine. But the challenge is, and even pre or even during the 2024 election, many people running, their answer was, oh, well, let's hope that Trump gets elected and then this problem will get solved. I find that to be too easy of an answer and not long lasting enough. There will be different administrations at some point that will again have different viewpoints on this, and we can't just be sitting here not exercising and not implementing policies that will help protect us even against administrations that aren't as helpful to us in this arena. So what do you think as a county attorney you could do to strengthen our policies here in Washington County to make Washington County less desirable to illegal immigration? And I know attorney generals aren't setting policy; they are interpreting state law, and but I think there's room for interpretations and laws, and then even more importantly, I think there's the ability to be an influential leader in the space. As county attorney, you have a direct line to our county commissioners as well as state legislators to actually make some changes. So we'll start back. We'll keep the same order since this is a 30-second follow-up. Zach, we're with you starting, please, on 30 seconds on just to address what we can do now to shore up illegal immigration, in prep for a different administration in the future.
So what we need to do, we need to stop the just plead and deport. Too often times when illegal immigrants are being caught committing crime, prosecutors will just say, all right, you plead guilty, we'll immediately release you. There's got to be some type of consequence. We don't need to just immediately release them. I would ask that they serve some significant jail time, and then to be deported. In the end, we cannot just simply release them back because of previous administrations. We do not have a secure border at this time, and they just keep on coming back. What we need to do is hold criminals responsible and get accountability, and then deport them in a timely manner.
And Jerry, on you, please.
I agree with Mr. Weiland, but to do that, we've got to have written policies and procedures. It shocks people, I think, that they don't realize that we don't have written policies and procedures in our office. We have 40 employees, 20 attorneys. We're a larger office now, and it needs to be in our written policies and procedures that we're going to take action where we actually hold these criminals responsible. We actually hold them in jail or put them in prison, and that needs to be in writing so that we can be transparent and held accountable by the public.
Thank you, Jerry. One quick follow-up question, since you mentioned the policies thing, are those policies within the county attorney's office? So the county attorney has the power to create those policies? Or are
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, I've already worked on that. Larger offices already have those, and we need those.
Great, thank you. Larry, the follow-up on what should we be doing to protect our county in prep for a future administration that isn't as protective?
Yeah, I'll echo what they said. I think it is important that there's consequences after the fact, but what can we do better to stop it in the future? What I think one area where we need to do better is documentation. Every illegal alien here has papers, and probably fraudulent papers that they bought somewhere in order to be able to work. And so what are we doing about document fraud? We've already got laws against that type of thing. Are we investigating? Are we making sure employers are doing their due diligence? Are we training employers on how to identify false documents? That'd be a great way to stop this at the root. When you come to our county and your documents are no good, you can't stay here. Or you get arrested just because you got bad documents. So I think that's a good place to start. Again, workplace is what's drawing them here. How do we cooperate and bring our employers into the program so that they are hiring legal people rather than illegal people? I think our employers want to obey the law, but they also want to make a profit. So let's bring them on board and find solutions where they hire legals rather than illegals.
Thank you, Larry. Let's jump over to there's still a lot of emailed in ones to get to, but I'm going to jump to some of the live questions that are coming in. This one will limit to just 1 minute, and we're we're starting with Jerry on this one. This one is, what's your biggest weakness? 1 minute, Jerry.
A weakness, I guess it's compassion. I have compassion for victims. I love them. I'm going to hear them out. And especially with child victims, I'm never going to force a child victim on the stand. And if that means me not being as tough as other prosecutors, that's that compassion, that love. And I'm always going to listen to that victim. And as a team of special victims prosecutors, we're always going to work with the parents, the guardians, and the healthcare professionals to make sure that we are never putting a child victim in danger. And yes, sometimes that means plea agreements.
Thank you, Jerry. Larry, you're up.
Well, and that's a good one. I respect Jerry for that. He's giving you an honest thing there. He's a good man, and I think he handles those cases well. I have a little bit of that issue too. I'm a nice guy. People tell me, "Oh, Larry, you're too nice. You're too nice to people. You're not really strong, maybe." And there's that perception because I am nice. I try to be a Christian. I try to be a disciple of Jesus Christ, and so some people might perceive that as weak. On the other hand, I get people telling me I'm extreme. I'm an extremist because I do take stands for constitutional issues and principles that I believe in. And oh, Larry, we got to be willing to compromise. So maybe I'm too nice, but I'm also too much of an extremist. But that's just who I am, and I do the best to try to do what's right.
All right, and Zach. Thank you, Jerry. Larry. Zach.
No, that is a very good question, and I'm trying to find what is my greatest weakness.
Bad jokes, Zach. Bad jokes.
Yeah, bad jokes. What's my greatest weakness? My greatest weakness is probably the impromptu questions online with 20 people watching. No, I too am extremely passionate, and sometimes maybe I'm too passionate about my work. Maybe that's my weakness. I'm one of the few prosecutors that actively listen to every jailhouse tape of most of my defendants. I am the prosecutor that, when victims don't want to speak, I will do whatever it takes to help them find a voice. I'm the one that will go to their house. I recently had a jury trial just yesterday, and the victim did not want to talk. She did not want to cooperate, but this man needed to be gone out of our community. And so I went to her house 4 times, just pleading with her to get her a voice. And in the end, she came and she testified, and she brought her son. And mid-trial, the defendant looked over and says, "I'm going to plead straight up." And he pled straight up to all counts. And then he's now been sent to prison. And he deserved to go. And so maybe one of my weaknesses is that I am just too passionate. I don't know.
All right. Thank you for addressing that. Here's another one that we received in email. The Bureau of Land Management, BLM, was given 3 years to complete the travel plan. Has the commissioners and attorney capitulated to the feds to let this still not be completed? This one is starting with Larry. Yes, that's right.
Which lands are they talking about? Can you say the first part of the question again?
Sure. It just says BLM was given 3 years to complete the travel plan, and
the travel plan.
Travel plan, yeah.
Is that about the Northern Corridor?
I believe the Northern Corridor is part of the travel plan. The question doesn't list all the details.
Well, I'll tell you this because I don't work for the county attorney's office. I'm not an insider on the civil policies that they're currently engaging in right now. As far as access to our lands, I think the county attorney's office has done a good job of fighting for trying to keep our county roads open, to try to develop the Northern Corridor, which I live on the north side of the county. I think we need better transportation. And so I don't know of any capitulation. I just can't say I have a personal knowledge of capitulation on these issues.
Zach, you're next.
No, I do agree. I agree that there is problems with too much influence from the federal government over our local lands. I do know that there's too much red tape. There is not a lot of solutions that, and a lot of red tape. And so we do need to have access. I do not like the fact that 75% of our land is being controlled by the federal government. We need to get a better job in getting more access to those lands.
Thanks very much, Zach. Jerry.
We have an amazing civil team. It's Devin Snow. And then with him, we also gratefully still have Eric Clark. I've called and talked to him. He would agree to help me out as a special deputy and work with Devin Snow on these issues. Eric Clark is the public land expert. We need him. As long as we don't burn that bridge and lose him and be negative towards him, will continue to work with us. And we've got to have that relationship. He has 10 years invested in the Northern Corridor. He's the one that knows these answers. As a prosecutor, special vigilance prosecutor, I do not have those answers. But I know Eric Clark and Devin Snow, they do, and I will rely on them, and I will not micromanage them. They are the experts, and they will make it happen. And gratefully, with President Trump in place, we're going to get this going. This is going to happen.
All right, thank you very much. Next question that came in from our online questions is, do you support the current practice of converting assets seized through searches of suspected criminal activity to law enforcement agencies? So I think this is called civil forfeiture. Is that what that is? So
Yes.
maybe explain some of that and why that happens, and if you stand for that. There's a lot of talk about this issue. And up first for this one is Larry.
I think I went first last time,
did
but I'm
you?
happy to go first again.
Oh yeah, then that means we're back at the top with Zach. Thank you, Larry. Zach, it's on you.
Yes, I do stand for seizing assets from criminals. If they obtain these products through illegal means, such as drug dealing, and they get a lot of assets, that is one way that we can reduce, that we can seize control of those assets and take it back. I don't believe that people should be rewarded for their criminal activities. I don't believe that criminals shall reap, cars and all these products off of dealing drugs to children. And so if we could take those items and punish them also, not only in jail, but also in their property being taken, I do support that. Another areas that we have recently done in Washington County is we have individuals that have been on motorcycle high-speed chases, and if the person continues to put Washington County citizens at risk and continues to flee from officers, once they're being caught, we are seizing their motorcycles. We don't want them to put Washington County people at risk. And for those two reasons, I do stand for seizing assets.
A follow-up question, just because I didn't mention this specifically in the first question, so Zach, I'll let you address it first, and the others will pick up on it. Is your view of that even without a criminal conviction?
Oh no, they need to be convicted. Sorry.
Okay. Because civil forfeiture, talks about these forfeitures of assets even without a conviction. So simply being suspected of it. So you do have a different view between suspected versus convicted.
That is correct. I believe that they should be convicted.
Great. Thank you for clarifying. Jerry, you're up next on that.
I would also agree with our due process rights that there would need to be a conviction to take property from someone. And I believe that's protected, and that's part of our due process rights. But I also agree that once they're convicted, that we do seize those funds or that property, because that actually helps us here in Washington County. That money is actually split up among the different departments. And so it helps so that we don't have to raise taxes. That money is actually used for our law enforcement personnel. And so I definitely support that. That illegal gotten gain should not go back to the person that's committed these crimes. Instead, it should be used here. And so we're not raising taxes, and that's part of fiscal responsibility.
And Larry. Thank you, Jerry.
Yeah, thanks. This is a great question. I think across the country, there's a lot of different types of civil asset forfeiture. I think Utah's actually got a pretty good balance, but I don't know every single aspect of the law. I would need to review it and see exactly what the best way to employ it would be. Definitely, if someone is convicted of a crime and there's proceeds of that crime or tools of that crime, the forfeiture action can be filed. Everyone needs to understand that there is due process. The person's served with the notice, they have the right to have a hearing, they get to appear in court and tell the judge why that's not proceeds of a crime or why it's not a tool of the crime that they were committing. And if the judge finds by the appropriate standard that it's not, then the person gets to keep their property. But on the other hand, if they were using the property in a crime or profiting from the crime, then that the judge can make a finding that it would be forfeited. I don't really think it should go directly to law enforcement. The concern I would have there is it could create the impression among the citizens that law enforcement is just trying to take citizens' property to benefit itself. It probably needs to go generally to government coffers and be used for where it's needed. And I'm not trying to put law enforcement down. I think it's just more public perception in order to not have the perception that, oh, hey, law enforcement's got this cool new Camaro because they took so-and-so's car. It just doesn't always, if we want the community to feel like we're doing things for the right reason, then don't make it where we get the benefit. That's what I would say.
All right. Thank you, Larry. The next question, also from online, is have you ever stood alone in defense of a correct principle? So tell us about a principle where you felt that you were correct on principle-wise, but yet you still received pushback from others, potentially in your office or elsewhere to handle that issue. And we are... one, two, three. We are with Jerry.
So yes, in our office, we are somewhat divided right now. We have those prosecutors that consider themselves the tough prosecutors. I'm more in the middle range. That's part of the reason why I've been pushing for years to have written policies and procedures so that we can all get on board, so that we can all be just prosecutors instead of tough or weak prosecutors. And that way we're ensuring that in each courtroom that we're having fair and justice. So they won't have in one courtroom a prosecutor that claims to be tough and is requiring a felony plea, and then another prosecutor in a different courtroom is giving away misdemeanors. That's just wrong. And so this is something I've been standing on for a long time, is really pushing for these written policies and procedures. And I've just had major pushback, and I've not been able to push that through. And that's going to be one of the first things that's going to happen, is we're going to get on the same page and we're going to be just prosecutors. Now, something that I want to point out is the Supreme Court has given us a mandate as to where we stand as prosecutors. And this is actually on our wall in our office. And this is from the Supreme Court. That's Justice Sutherland, who stated, while a prosecutor may strike hard blows, he is not at liberty to strike foul ones. And I promise I will never strike a foul blow. I mean, that, to me, that's what it means to be a just prosecutor. We're not supposed to be tough prosecutors or weak prosecutors. We're to be just prosecutors.
All right. Thank you, Jerry. Larry, please.
Yeah, thanks, Jerry. I like what you said, and I think it would be important to have some good guidelines. I went on your website that Eric put up, and I don't know who wrote those guidelines, but there are prosecution guidelines on the county attorney's website right now, and I thought they were pretty good, but they are pretty general. We do need consistency in that respect. But the question was, have we stood alone? I'm sure there's many times when I have stood alone, but frequently when I have taken tough stands, it's been with a few other people who shared my views. In 2020, when the federal government told us we had to shut everything down and we had to, stay 6 feet apart from each other and wear masks and get shots to save us, I thought, this is crazy. This is like a mass psychosis. And I couldn't believe how many of my fellow Republicans, because I was thinking about running for county attorney then, and I was talking to delegates, and people were like, oh, scary, scary. We got to do what Fauci says. And I'm like, what? And so I was the one that organized one of the first marches against that here in Washington County. I think it was April of 2020. I could have my date wrong. We gathered at the county building. We didn't all wear a mask. We didn't stay 6 feet apart. We walked around the block, and our message was, let people decide their own health decisions. The government doesn't tell us what to do. And so people looked at me and thought, "You're crazy, man. How come you guys aren't wearing masks?" And so I haven't been afraid to stand alone or with a few good friends when it comes to standing up for what's right and wrong, in my view. Thanks.
And Zach.
Thank you. I too, after a careful analysis of when have I stood alone, I know oftentimes in the courtroom, when we are dealing with one of these, the heaviest of cases, child sex abuse, and I know that the judge doesn't want to quickly go to trial because there's, the defense attorney has asked for continuances, and everybody says continue. No, as I said earlier, justice delayed is justice denied. We need to stand with the victims. We need to stand together. Nobody should actually stand alone. But in those instances where everybody's asking for continuances, we got to stop. And so that's one instances where I stood up and I said, no, victims have rights and we need to get these resolutions quickly. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. So next question. So I'm curious if you can explain the relationship between the county attorney's office and the county clerk with how counties evaluate state election laws. I filed the same grandma request to about a dozen counties. The answers ranged from 1, here's your data; 2, state law only allows me to share partial data; 3, state law forbids me from sharing any of that data; and 4, state law requires that I charge you for that data. Why do you think? So A, it's really strange that state law has dictated 4 different answers to the same question, to the same grandma request. But why do you think Washington County was least transparent in their evaluation of state law, and what role did the county attorney's office play in that? First up for that is Larry.
Great question. I'm glad this question was asked. Transparency and making sure that citizens have access to as much information as possible is very important. I think that the county attorney is the legal advisor to the clerk's office. The county clerk has responsibilities for certain things under the Utah Code. And when they have questions about that, they can come to the county attorney's office, and the county attorney's office would give them legal advice on how to interpret that. Unfortunately, I think the reason why people get these different answers around the state could be just different interpretations of the code. One person's idea of what is privileged might be different than another. One person's idea of what's confidential may be different. What's private may be different among different interpretations. My interpretations would lead towards transparency. My advice to the county attorney or to the county clerk's office would be to err in favor of transparency wherever we can, because we want the citizens to be informed. We don't want to hide things. I was disappointed when the clerk's office wouldn't let the candidates see who the people were who had unverified signatures on their ballots. I thought the candidates could have helped get those people to verify their signatures, but my understanding is our county clerk and our county attorney's office, I'm not sure what the county attorney's office role was in that, but did not give that transparency to the candidates and said, we're just handling this internally. And that's good. Government does investigations, but candidates have a vested interest in making sure every vote counts. That's just an example of where I think better transparency as a policy is a good thing.
Thank you, Larry. Zach, your thoughts on that?
No, I agree. I agree that transparency is important. I believe transparency throughout the election process. We want to be secure. We want to know that the election process is protected. And I too, I agree that we should be as transparent as possible. I do know that recently in our office, we have a recent an attorney assigned to look into election fraud and to be an advocate for the county in order to make sure that our elections are safe.
All right. Thank you, Zach. Jerry.
So I also agree it's very important to have transparency, and I definitely agree in Grandma that we should be getting information out. One thing to understand, though, is our office, the county attorney's office, we advise the clerk's office of the law. And so we're going to tell them the law and say, this is the law, this is what we believe you need to do. But the clerk's office has the final say. They will make the decision as to how they proceed. And so we're going to do the best we can to give them the law and say, hey, look, we need to be transparent. This is the law. This is what it says. But then the clerk's office, they're the ones that are going to ultimately make that decision.
Yeah, thank you, Jerry. Would you be surprised to hear that oftentimes county clerks respond back with, well, our county attorney told us to
yes
do it this way?
And they like to try to turn around and throw us under the bus. They sure do.
Yeah, I heard that more than once.
Yes.
All right. So moving on to the next question that was emailed in. I guess Jerry, this one's specifically for you. Sorry for calling you out, but it was emailed in. In regards to the letter endorsing Jerry from Sheriff Brooksby, who paid for those and what else has been exchanged for this support?
So yeah, that's a good question, and there's nothing been exchanged. And so when I was trying to decide whether to put in to become county attorney or not, initially I didn't say yes because I love being a special victims prosecutor. I was concerned about taking myself out of the courtroom and working with the victims. So it's actually the sheriff that came to me and personally asked me to step up and put in for this position. And then he agreed at that point. He said that I fully support you and I endorse you to do this because I know you're the right person. I paid for those letters, and my wife and I, we spent a half a day putting those letters in envelopes and putting on stamps and sending those out. So that was all paid by me, and I'm grateful for my wife putting that together.
All right, thank you for clearing that up, Jerry. Moving on to the whole group questions. Can you tell us how you will advocate for victims specifically? Right, we've heard a little bit about this, about having compassion for victims in choosing to do plea deals and keeping them out of the witness stand. But can you go to another level of specificity and tell us how you'll be an advocate for victims and making sure that victims feel that they are being represented properly? And Zach, we're back to the top, starting with you, please.
You bet. I'm very passionate about my work. I know my victims. I've had several of the victims come to my home. I've got to meet them. I've got to meet their families, and I support them. The most important thing that we can do to help the victims is to get to know them. Oftentimes, because we are so busy, victims feel that they are not part of the process, that they are just, a tool. But we need to get them involved. We need to sit down and speak with them and help them find their voice. I know of a 7-year-old boy who did not want to testify. He did not want to talk about the sexual abuse that he received at the hands of his cousin. He went to therapy. He wouldn't even talk to his therapist. The night before, I was at a friend's house and I saw a game Fortnite, and I had no idea what Fortnite was. I watched it for like 10 minutes and I'm still baffled. But that following day, when that child said that he was not going to cooperate, he's not going to testify, and a sense came to me, said, ask him about Fortnite. And I told him, I said, hey, do you play Fortnite? And his eyes got big. And he says, do you play Fortnite? I'll be honest, I lied. I said I did. And I started asking him questions. And then I said, look, if you could just talk to me, just tell your story 2 times, once tonight and again tomorrow. And that connection allowed him, peace, and allowed him to, he said, you know what, I will testify. So we need to connect with victims. That boy did testify that following day, and now his perpetrator has gone to prison 25 years to life. So we need to be more compassionate, but we need to help the victims find their voice.
Thank you, Zach. Jerry, you're up next.
I appreciate this question. So first of all, we have an ethical duty. Prosecutors have an ethical duty that no other attorneys have. It's actually under Rule 3.8 of the Professional Rules of Conduct, and it only applies to prosecutors. And one of those duties is that we don't put out misinformation concerning victims' cases. And unfortunately, an opponent has on a specific case that I was involved in. And we also have a victims' right bill that requires us to respect victims, and especially children victims. Now, this specific case actually involved a 15-year-old, or a young woman. She'd been sexually molested by her stepfather. And you need to recognize that with these cases, these special victims cases, there's a whole team that works on these cases, not Jerry Jager, it's a team. We have Ryan Sham, he's our chief prosecutor, and last year he actually was awarded the top prosecutor in the state of Utah. He works on that team. We also have the Children's Justice Center, they're a part of that team. We actually include the guardian of the victim, and then the victim. And then we also have the detective that was involved in the case. We have the medical people that are involved, and of course mental health. And so we take all that, we take that whole team and we staff this case. The problem with this case was this young woman, she was physically sick. She was actually passing out in school. She could not go forward. And if we were to set this matter for trial, it was going to be a year out before we get a trial. And so she had to resolve this case for her physical health. And so that is why, despite me trying to encourage her not to take the defense plea, she agreed to it because she needed that case to be done. And everyone on that team, this wasn't Jerry J, this is everyone on that team agreed we had to do this for this victim. And now recognize that these special victims, when they go to court on a plea agreement, the judge turns to the victim and says in open court, is this what you want? Is this what you need? And that victim said, yes, I need this. You can get that recording. You can hear this victim saying, I need this plea agreement because she needed that for her mental sake. Now, the benefit of that plea agreement is this individual will be put in the sex offender registry for life, a no contact for her and her siblings for life, also on probation, jail, everything except for prison. Now, of course, in jail now, he's not doing well in jail. I'm filing an order to show cause, so it looks like he's going to go to prison anyway. So in the end, it looks like we're going to probably get everything that we would have gotten if we even did do the plea agreement.
Thank you very much, Jerry. And Larry, wrap that one up, please.
Great question. Victims' rights are very important. I think Utah even has it in our Constitution that crime victims have rights, if I'm not mistaken.
That is right.
In addition to the Utah Code. And so we definitely need to respect those victims' rights that are in the Constitution and in the Code. And I commend both of these prosecutors and our prosecuting attorney's office here in Washington County. They've generally done a good job of doing that. I see it frequently in court. They do listen to victims. They do give victims a chance to speak and be heard. And they're very effective in advocating for the victims. And so I see that that's being done well, and I think we can continue to do that well and maybe even do it better in some circumstances. Two cautions I would have. First is not every alleged victim is really a victim. We do have to have some wisdom in prosecution to know for sure when the truth is being told. And I'm not saying that there's grievous cases of this where they're prosecuting cases that maybe aren't true, but we just always have to be cautious that we don't destroy someone's life on a false accusation. So that's the wisdom that a prosecutor has to have, is when do we prosecute and when do we not. And I've definitely seen, unfortunately, people be charged with felonies where it was later proved by other evidence that the alleged victim was not telling the truth. So that's one caution. The second one is when we say we listen to victims, sometimes we have to listen to when they go against what we want to do when we're trying to prosecute a case. And we want to get a conviction for domestic violence or whatever it may be, and the victim saying, I don't want that to happen for some reason. They've got some other reason. And we may not agree with it, but I think maybe we need to be more respectful of victims. I have seen some of the prosecutors dismiss cases because the victim would not cooperate with them. And, we got to respect people's choices. It doesn't always produce the outcome we want, but sometimes we just have to respect people's choices and help them as much as we can. So that's what I'd add to the conversation.
Thank you, Larry. We will jump to Jerry for the next question, and that's going to come from our online group. Folks, don't forget, I'm definitely spending a lot of time looking at these online questions as well as the ones that we have emailed in. So we're going to try to get to all of them, so don't hesitate to ask your questions online. This question is, and again, Jerry, you'll start with it. Are we doing enough in sentencing non-violent offenders with something like, let's say, ankle bracelets to ensure that they can keep their employment and avoid welfare and family financial crisis? So can you tell us about your thoughts on that?
I believe we can do more. Absolutely. We need to be working with these victims. We need to recognize that ultimately we're trying to change behavior. We're trying to these defendants, try to change them so they become productive members of society. We also need to use our recovery court and our veterans court and our mental health court. We need to take advantage of those so that we're getting them help. And yes, we can look at other ways to make sure that we're getting them the help to change them and so that they become productive members of society. Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you, Jerry. Larry, you're next on that.
Yeah, I think Utah and also Washington County have been pretty innovative on these type of things, of trying to find ways to help people obey the law and successfully complete probation without just putting them in jail. You know, some people do need to be incarcerated. Some people are menaces to society and will hurt people unless they're restricted for a time, the appropriate time. But other people just maybe need additional things, like you say, an ankle bracelet. There's actually a new program that just started, I don't know, in the past year, the 24/7 program for DUI offenders. It's an alcohol ankle monitor where it measures the alcohol in your blood. And so I've had a number of clients who've been able to qualify for that program, keep their driver's licenses. They're paying for the program. And if they consume any alcohol, it's immediately reported through the ankle monitor system. And so it helps them to stay sober. It keeps drunk drivers off the streets, but it lets people keep their jobs and not have to serve as much jail time. So what I've seen is defense attorneys are bringing that program forward, not the prosecution. I haven't had one prosecutor say to me, hey, why don't we get this guy on 24/7? I think he ought to be wearing an ankle monitor so he's not drinking. So I think we can be a little more proactive on the county attorney side with some of these. Thanks.
Thank you, Larry. Zach.
Yes. There has to be strong prosecutors, but they also have to be compassionate. There are certain instances, like you said, nonviolent offenders that they need help. I'll be the first to help them. If they came to me and they said, look, I can't afford GPS ankle monitoring. That is expensive. That's like, I was told it was like $10 a day. So it's $300 a month. I mean, and they couldn't afford it. There are alternatives. Washington County, we developed it's a court support services where they can be monitored. They could be on probation and it doesn't cost them a thing. We do look into these all avenues in order to protect society, but also help the offender rehabilitate. Rehabilitation is our primary goal. And even those that are convicted of felonies, I've had several friends that come back and say, hey, look, what can I do? There are ways that they could have their felonies reduced to misdemeanors, that we can, do what it helps to get them through the expungement process. Those are ways that we are doing to help people.
Awesome. Thank you, Zach. All right. Next question that was emailed in. How will the public be informed when officers are investigated for having lied in a police report, warrant application, or any other official context? Maybe you can explain what role the county attorney's office plays in such a situation. And Larry, you were up first on this one.
Yeah, thanks. I think the public does need to receive information at some point. But as in any criminal investigation or allegations of wrongdoing, generally the investigation is confidential. And that's for important reasons. You don't want to have people interfering in the investigation. You don't want to sensationalize it in the public when the investigation is not complete, and so forth. So during the investigation, there does need to be confidentiality. But once there's been decisions made and the facts have been established, those things I believe are public. Like I said, I went on the county attorney's website, and things that Eric Clark has posted or whoever's posted there include the findings that he has made in cases where there are allegations of wrongdoing. such as the unfortunate case of the deputy who had the traffic accident and a motorcycle rider was killed. And so those actually are public right now, and people could go and I opened those up and read them, and it's it's sad to see law enforcement either make mistakes or go bad, but I think there's a balance between confidential during the investigation, public once the determination has been made.
Thank you, Larry. Zach, you're up.
So just so I understand the question is that if an officer is caught lying, what can the society know about it? Is that correct? I'm sorry.
Yeah, when there's it was specifically about when there's an investigation, and when, how will the public be informed when officers are investigated for having lied in a police report, warrant application, or any other context?
I will let you know that if there is an investigation about an officer lying and it is proven, oftentimes those officers are no longer officers because their credibility. If there are other instances where it was a misunderstanding and it was even the appearance of lying, oftentimes they are marked and they are flagged, and then we give defense attorneys knowledge of that. And so the defense attorneys and the participants in the actual crime, they do know if an officer has been involved in anything even remotely close to illegal activity.
Thank you. And wrap it up, Jerry.
So I would agree with both Mr. Myers and Mr. Weiland. They do get flagged. Now, but if it gets to the degree where it's actually possibly criminal, then we need to send it out to be reviewed as a conflict case. And we would do that usually with Garfield County or Iron County. I have actually been a special prosecutor for both Garfield County and Iron County, and I go and help out there when they have conflict cases. And that's what we do in turn. We trade off. And so that way those cases are being reviewed instead of by us, by someone else, a different county, to determine whether or not it needs to go to the next level and actually have criminal charges filed.
Thank you, Jerry. All right, next question, and we're getting close on time. This might be the last one, depending on how long we take on this. So this we're back up to the top. So Zach, you'll go first. In your first year as county attorney, what do you think will be your biggest strength?
In my first year,
on this one?
Zach is first on this one. Zach, you struggled a little bit on weakness, so now we're going to go to strength, and we're going to give you a softball over the plate right now. So knock it out, buddy.
This is it. No, I'm a very social person. I have an open door policy. I connect with people. People could come to my office and they could sit down and we could discuss things. We could, unite the community. We can unite the differences of opinion within the Republican Party. I am a fighter, but I'm also very open, and I am a listener, but I am a man of action too. My greatest asset is the fact that I am a people person and that I do take this job seriously, and I will be a voice for all. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Zach. Jerry, please.
So 3 points. First of all, most importantly is integrity. Integrity. You've got to have integrity. Second is knowledge. And I think this is the biggest challenge for Mr. Myers. I know the 40 employees. I know the Children's Justice Center and those employees. That's under our umbrella. I know our e-prosecutor program and the changes that we need to make with that. I'm very familiar with our budget. That's one of the first things we need to do is start working on the 2026 budget. And I'm familiar with that and how we need to make changes. We need to be fiscally responsible, and I know of a couple of changes with that. I'm also very familiar with our leadership and making some leadership changes. I'm familiar with our cases and our victims. All these are things that come with experience, 23 years experience. The prosecution side is the opposite side of defense. The motions I file are the opposite of defense. I file the 404B and 404C motions. I file them all the time to get the evidence in. Mr. Myers files the motions to suppress, to keep the evidence out. I have fought this fight over and over again, and I've won. I've won all my special victims cases. Again, 4 homicides and numerous child sex cases. And these are people that we get to know and we work with for years, these victims, and we're there to serve them and work with them. And we will continue that fight. And it's about knowledge. That's why knowledge is power. And with that power, then you make a plan. I have a plan. I've been working on this plan for a year. This plan involves actually making First, leadership changes. We need a leadership team where we lead by example. We're going to have a 4-part leadership team where we're working and leading together. We also are going to be working directly with those. I will be working directly with those victims. I'll take a partial caseload. So I'm setting an example where I'm in court. I believe it's very important to be in court every week so that you set the example and you continue to be sharp and understand what's going on in court and understanding the judges and the different issues that are going on. In addition to that, I actually have a plan that puts together a training program. We do not have
Hey, Jerry, so I'm going to cut you off there because you're sort of drifting away from just your top strengths. And I think
Yes.
you're getting into your closing argument, your closing statement, which is fine because I did say that we're getting close, but I am going to give you some dedicated time for a closing statement.
Oh, thank you.
Is it okay if you put some of those points to the next one?
Absolutely. Yeah, I could go on for a while there. Yes,
I appreciate that. But so Larry, if you can get us back to just this question about in your first year as county attorney, what do you think will be your biggest strength?
I would say being a people person, both in the office and in the public. I think I will be able to come in and get to know the staff. I get to know the prosecutors better. I already know the prosecutors pretty well from working with them, both when I was a prosecutor with some of them and as a defense attorney with others. But building relationships is something that's important to me and that I would value. And really with me, you get all three of us because I'm open to working with both and either of my opponents, and good ideas rise to the top with me. So in the office, I think building strong relationships. Outside the office, building strong relationships with other community leaders, with business leaders, with the education system. We need a county attorney who's out there sharing the message of what kind of county we want to have. And that's what you can expect from me.
Thank you, Larry. All right. So like I said, I will give you a couple of minutes to do closing. I want to thank you guys for coming and thank all the questions for coming in. I apologize that I couldn't get to all of them, but I also want, while you guys formulate your thoughts for your last 2 minutes, Willie, can you go ahead and unmute yourself? I know you have a few things that you want to say to our attendees as well.
First off, I'd like to thank all three of these good men for their efforts to run for this position and to join us this evening. I think this has been valuable, and I think the questions have been valuable to open us up to who you are and what you stand for. So thank you to the three of you. Gary, thank you for moderating, and those of you that joined this evening, the County Central Committee members, I appreciate you serving diligently and making time to represent the people that elected you to do this job. Thank you. Secondly, and finally, I want to make sure we understand that when we have our County Central Committee meeting, and I want to make sure it's clear, I'll do it that day. I will articulate that day as well. But right now, I want you to understand that because there's only 3 people running, then all 3 of them will be put forward by acclamation. So all 3 are going to go through because that state statute, that is the way the county attorney's replacement is done midterm like this, that we put 3 people forward, and the fact that there's only 3 people in the race means all of them will go forward by acclamation. We are choosing, and I had a webinar with the candidates the other day. We're choosing to go ahead and have them speak at the event, so the body itself, the governing body, those elected, will have a chance to meet them, get to hear from them, and then we're going to have a straw poll. It's a mock election. It's going to be basically a straw poll, which is not binding. It's not official. We don't need to have an election that's official because by state statute, all of them go forward anyway. So we will have a mock election after their speeches so that, the body can vote and we can put forward to the county commissioners who the preference was. But quite frankly, this is as a newly elected leadership team. This is our first time actually running an election, electronic elections like this. And so what an opportunity to go ahead and have one that's non-binding, non-official. So if the electronics don't work out for some reason, it just doesn't matter, okay? And so we want to give you that opportunity, but I want it to be clear that regardless of how we vote, and let's say Zach has the highest votes, or Larry, or Jerry, whoever gets the highest votes is irrelevant in this situation. because they're all three going forth regardless of how this. And I do not want any county central committee members stepping up and being offended or being mad at the county commissioners on who they actually wind up choosing, even if it's not who the body through that simple straw poll chose, because we're not the only ones that are helping them make this decision. I mean, the law enforcement, the county attorneys, all the county attorneys that are there, there's a lot of things that they got to make decisions on. And that's why the state statute for this specific position says that 3 will go forward and the county commissioners get to choose.
All right.
Okay, so nobody get offended.
Yep.
If the body votes one person as the highest and the county commissioners actually choose someone else, that's their position and that is their authority to do that. And we are not going to have anybody get bent out of shape because it didn't go the way we wanted it. The state statute says 3 go forward, and that's how it's going to be. Fair enough?
Yep, we got it. Everybody understands that. And for time's sake, let's jump to our closing statements from each of our candidates. I'll give you 2 minutes on the clock for that. And apologies to our attendees. On looking at the clock, we're probably going to go 1 minute over our scheduled time if we stick to 2 minutes each. So I appreciate if you do that. Jerry, you are first on this, so you can pick up where you left off on your last
Perfect.
question.
Great, thank you. Again, it's about knowledge. How can you make changes if you just do not know? If you don't understand the e-prosecutor program, we're having problems with that program. We pay $1,000 a month. I know how to fix that because I know. Also, I know our employees. I know who to put in leadership. Gratefully, Ryan Sham, the prosecutor of the year, he's agreed to stick around a couple more years. And I appreciate that, and to be able to use him as a leader and a mentor for our young prosecutors. Also, the relationships that we have with outside agencies, the police chiefs, the sheriff, other counties, Chad Dotson in Iron County, Gary Huntington in Garfield County. These relationships I've built over the years, the federal prosecutors. This is something that I've done for 23 years in building these relationships. Over the last year, I've worked actively on this plan to move forward and so that we can address some problems that we do have in our office. Again, it's about transparency, accountability. We've got to have written policies and procedures. We also need an actual training program. I am certified by the bar to be a mentor, and that's one of the things I've been working with our new attorneys, mentoring them and helping them, but we need a better training program. And so that's one of the things I'll be working on. And again, putting in place an actual plan that I have put together because of my 23 years of knowledge. Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry. Thanks for keeping it tight. Larry, you're up next, please.
Thanks. To each of the committee members who's been with us tonight and our party leadership, thank you for being here, putting this on. This is important. It's good that we were able to share and answer these questions. I see there's a lot of other questions. If something didn't get answered, please email me, dixierepublican@yahoo.com, and I'd be happy to get you my answers. Who we choose as our next county attorney is important. I respect the process. I respect that the commissioners are going to make that final decision. I've not always supported them, but I have supported them on a lot of things. So it'll be interesting to see what decision they make. I'll tell you 2 things. I met with Sheriff Brooksby last week, and he told me why he was supporting Jerry, and I respect that because Jerry's a good prosecutor, and he's one the sheriffs support. But I'm good friends with the sheriff. We worked together on the SCC for a couple of years. We have good communication, and if I'm the county attorney, I'll have a good relationship with Sheriff Brooksby. I met with Victor Iverson, and one thing he said to me is, Larry, you're just a one-man firm. What's your leadership? I was the chair of the Southwestern Special Service District through one of our toughest times. That's our Winchester Hills board that governs our volunteer fire department. When we had to break off from a separate community and work with the county, a lot of hot emotions going on there. I was able to work with both sides to bring us through that. I've been in leadership in a lot of different organizations, and so I think I'm going to be able to be a good leader. Sure, there's going to be some things that we'll have to learn. Each one of us has strengths, but none of us knows everything about this job. I pledge to live by the principles that I've always lived by and do my best to be a representative of the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. And Zach, finish up the night for us.
Hey, thank you. And I'll keep it short because I know that, we promised at 8:30. Hey, I am a leader. I am the one in the office that have worked side by side with all these young prosecutors. I am the one that they come to when they want help. I'm the one that we go to trial together side by side. I am a listener. I have listened to the victims, and I've listened to people whose voices have not been heard and that they want to be heard, and I will support them in court. I am passionate about what I do. I want to make this community safe. I am passionate about helping others and to, get justice for all the victims, and also to make, all of us feel safe at night. I'm going to be honored to get your vote, and hopefully I'll be the next county attorney. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Zach. Hey, everybody, again, to the attendees, thank you for coming and spending an hour and a half with us tonight. I want you all to know that, each of these candidates have been very easy to work with. They've, communicated with the party very, very crisply, concisely, and timely, got on calls with us, got onto this call, and dedicated their time to educate the party and the CCC body, where they stand on issues, and a lot of reach out. I know I've seen that. So thank you to our candidates as well, for all your time. And I think we can wrap it up there, folks. Thanks again. Have a good evening. And we will see you all on Thursday, ready to get credentialed, and have a great meeting there as well. Thank you very much.